In the summer of 2022, a woman in Maryland named Kelly Abidi was scrolling Facebook when she saw a post from a fried chicken food truck in Minnesota. The post said that someone in their family had died. And Kelly panicked because her mother worked at that food truck. Her mother, who had legally changed her name, who had missed her wedding, who she had barely spoken to in 15 years. So she messaged the food truck page. Is my mom okay? Is it her? She messaged them several times. She contacted her mother's last known roommates, but according to Kelly, the food truck's answer was to tell her to cease and desist, and her mother texted her that she was getting a taste of her own medicine. Her mother was alive, but that is the moment Kelly Abidi decided to stop being quiet, and within weeks, she was being sued for $200,000. And we are going to unpack this whole mystery. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hey everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, unique spiritual practices, controversy, all of it. I post a video or two on one of these topics every single week, so if you are into this sort of thing, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here. So today we are going to Minnetonka, Minnesota for the story of the soulful journey. Its founder, Soulaire Allerai, and yes, an award-winning fried chicken truck. Investigation Discovery just aired a 2-hour special on this group a couple days ago, so a lot of you are going to be meeting these names for the first time, and I want to tell you up front on why I picked this one, because it honestly isn't the usual reason. There aren't any criminal charges in this story. No one's been arrested. Nobody has died. Soulaire has never even been convicted of anything related to any of this, and she will flatly deny every single allegation that you are about to hear. So what we have today is just a stack of sworn affidavits, a defamation lawsuit, and a judge in Hennepin County who was asked to decide legally what a cult even is. Now, everything alleged in this video comes from named people under oath or on the record with reporters, and I will tell you every time whose account you are actually hearing. So let's go back to 1993. Before she was Soulaire Allerai, she was Lynn Young, and her life, by her own telling, was pretty ordinary. Her father was an executive chef, and she said she didn't grow up with a lot of money. She's described a long list of jobs before any of this. You know, she was driving a school bus for children with special needs, working as an airline dispatcher, managing a call center, training employees, running a fish store with a friend, and running a housekeeping business. She did go to community college and then went to St. Catherine University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in communication and studio art in 1997. She was married. She had 2 kids. She had kind of this picturesque Midwest life. I mean, she was a woman who worked hard in very unglamorous lives while raising a family. And nothing about this is a red flag. And almost every leader I cover on this channel starts as somebody's ordinary neighbor. But then came this medical procedure. She had to have a surgery, and in her own words, she had an out-of-body experience during that procedure and encountered a being she came to know as G. And that encounter, she says, began a relationship that led to her becoming a channel for this entity. And in 2005, a New Age publication called The Edge ran a piece describing how, in 1993, Young became a vehicle through whom a spirit called G began to impart wisdom to anyone who would listen. Her words in that piece are worth hearing exactly because they set up everything. She said that G is very loving, very enduring, and that it is amazing to watch how everyone is transformed by him. She said she looks at people and they're not the same people she knew. And then she said, quote, "I now know that I am a servant to G, and that I am here to do his will. Whatever it is he needs, I will be the vessel or the vehicle by which it comes," unquote. And that's kind of a clever position because it means that every instruction that comes out of her mouth somehow belongs to this higher entity. So if you push back on Soulaire, you're not disagreeing with this woman from Minnetonka. You're disagreeing with an omniscient being of divine light. So try winning that argument at a potluck.
This is that place where mind, ego, me does not exist.
So she would start this teaching operation, and it would grow through the 90s and into the 2000s. It was a company called Master Paths, and it would sponsor seminars and workshops that promised to teach people how to transcend the human matrix, shed the religious matrix, and reclaim their spiritual birthright. She then founded the Living Faith Spiritual Community, where she served as minister and spiritual founder, and she launched the Soulful Journey as a lifestyle and spiritual guidance company. Now, sources disagree on the exact founding years, including her own website, so I'm just going to say early to mid-2000s and leave it there rather than pretend there's precision to this, because there isn't. Now, she would buy a building on Minnetonka Mills Road that would become the Soulful Journey Wellness Center. And in 2007, she published a book called Being, built around G's teachings, organized under the acronym for Being: birthright, energy, intention, now, God-realization. They just had to throw the R in there, but keep it being. So it's a God-realization. You know, anything to make the acronym work, I suppose. So while promoting this, she would talk publicly about her separation from her husband and her estrangement from her own children. And this is a theme, the whole abandon your entire family situation, that would filter its way into her followers' minds. So what exactly was happening in the building that she bought? Now, according to Hennepin County District Court affidavits and interviews that people gave, according to ex-member Rayla Lumini, says that she was in Allerai's community for 13 years, starting in 2002. Now, this was back when the leader was actually going by Lynn Young. In her affidavit, she describes the Wednesday night channeling sessions, and honestly, the logistics of all this kind of tell you more than the theology itself does. The sessions would start in members' homes, then move into a rented basement, and then eventually land in the wellness center. So participants would sometimes wait hours for Allerai to show up, and then they'd wait more for G to come into her body. Then G would teach them for an hour or two. And then when it was over, everybody would just sit there for another 30 to 90 minutes because they didn't want to break the energy of the circle. Okay, so let's just do the math here. You spend an entire evening in an uncomfortable folding chair, and a meaningful chunk of it is spent waiting around for this woman to arrive. Ooh, waiting for the spirit to arrive. Oh, and then waiting for permission to go home. Because if you're the first one to leave, no, you're not gaining the enlightenment. You're not soaking in that energy. You're not going to achieve all that you want to achieve. You're going to look bad in the eyes of not just the leader, but G themselves. And honestly, in my opinion, as someone who was involved in an online cult and would do breath work for 3 hours every Friday night for a while, this is not a spiritual practice, in my opinion. This is a device to make your time worthless and her time priceless. And it makes you feel like you're devoting yourself to a higher cause. Now, another former member, Gretchen West, moved in with Allerai and her wife, Lyra, in 2013 before her junior year of high school to attend school in Minnesota. Now, in her affidavit, she describes the channelings kind of like this performance. She said, quote, her entire demeanor would change, the facial expressions, the tone of voice, the posture, when each personality was in her body. She says the personalities varied in gender, in interests, in knowledge, and in age, ranging from 3 years old to hundreds of years old.
This is the place where I am God.
And as an actor myself, I can tell you That's not difficult to do, even for a non-actor. That's essentially just playing pretend, which we've all been children who have played pretend before. I think it's kind of innate to the human experience. She wasn't channeling anything, and anyone who says they are channeling an entity, just go check their, acting resume. See if they've ever created a page on backstage.com, okay? Now, according to West, not only did Allerai channel God and other enlightened spirits, she'd also lived in other dimensions and on other planets. And then, not only that, her followers had too. And then West names the function of it directly, which is why her affidavit is so valuable. Quote, "This was one of the many techniques she used to control us. She claimed she knew our lives on these other planets and in these other dimensions. She used this to influence our decisions in our day-to-day lives." So that's the whole machine in 3 sentences from someone who lived inside this group as a teenager. And I just want to bring in Faye West here. She's a different former member, now living in London, who lived with the group for 3 years as a teenager. When Fox 9 asked her to explain what Soulford Journey actually believed in, she said she struggles to even describe it because it started as meditation and positive thinking, and then it became something else. Her words exactly were, it became very much rooted in and tied to Soulaire as a channel, and this person was channeling God. And that progression is the most common thing in the world in a cult. I mean, the group I was in just looked like an online meditation circle. I had no idea it was connected to this insidious cult that had a terrible history. If you want more information, I will drop that video right here. Because the thing is, in any cult, but specifically this one, the first session is never going to be a woman speaking as a 300-year-old spirit. The first session is going to be breath work and being told that you have so much potential. And then the theology arrives after the community does, when you're already connected to these people, when you've already shared probably some of your deepest secrets, when leaving would already cost you every friend you've developed. The specifics then get stranger. Because according to former members, Allerai taught that there was a parallel dimension called the 99, where everyone had another identity. Faye West, who lived in the group as a teenager and left the day after she turned 18, told Fox 9 that Allerai told her that in the 99, she was the leader's daughter. Rayla told Fox 9 that Allerai claimed her children belonged to someone else in the 99. So we'll just kind of look at the mechanics of that one, not just the weirdness. If there is a second, truer world where I am your mother and your actual kids are not actually yours, then every family bond in this world, in this realm, has just been assigned to somebody else. That's not your real mom. Your mom out there in Iowa? Nope, that's a cosmic clerical error. Your real family is here in this building, in the cult. And once again, I am begging these cult leaders to come up with new material because it is the oldest isolation tool there is. It just has a shiny new coat of paint on it. Oh, and per West's affidavit, the classes, including massage and relationship classes on intimacy and psychic development, Allerai said that she could tap into Spirit, who was a chiropractor, and would perform weekly chiropractic adjustments on her, this teenager. She was a ghost chiropractor working through a life strategist on an underage girl. Guys, if a spirit from another dimension wants to adjust your spine, please, for the love of God, see a real chiropractor with actual malpractice insurance. There are way too many people parading around these days pretending that they know more than they know. You cannot just trust what people say coming out of their own mouths. I can't even tell you how many practitioners, even some chiropractors that have like functional medicine attached to their names, try to sell you these insane solutions to whatever problem ails you. And you're just like, how is this going to cost me $5,000 when I could just go to a chiropractor through my insurance? That doesn't have a wall of certificates that they probably got online over 6 weeks. I mean, it's happening all over the place, not just in the spiritual cult space. But now I want to jump to the money, because this is where the story stops just being kind of odd and starts being expensive. Now, according to Luminai's affidavit, the channeling sessions and classes eventually ran $150 a week. That's more than a therapy session. Now, Allerai also hosted monthly healings where a group would gather around a massage table and perform an energetic healing on someone, and that was billed at $1 a minute. For a group of people you barely know to heal your energy and touch you, no thank you very much. Now, according to Luminai, members were also asked to do unpaid work at the organization's facility. This would include shampooing rugs, cleaning garages, gardening, weeding, and she says members were also asked to pay the group's property taxes. What? So not only do you pay to attend these sham courses, you also get to work for free and then chip in on the building's tax bill. Wow. This is the building that the owner of the group owns, the building that you are essentially paying to be in. And she's like, no, that's not enough. Pay my property tax? I don't think so. Luminai says that she and other members also worked unpaid on 2 video games that Allerai was trying to launch called Bannockey Town and QD3. She says that for many, many months, she and her husband personally paid the monthly salary of one of the programmers on QD3, and they were never reimbursed. And the pitch, according to her affidavit, was that once the game became a success, everyone would benefit, and they would make G's dreams a reality. Guys, I constantly try to educate all of us and myself on how to avoid these cults and how to avoid getting into these groups because, like I said, they never look like what you think they are. They're a yoga class, they're a meditation night at your local YMCA, they're a sound bath in a friend's backyard. But the second there's some kind of weird business attached, like they start selling crystals and selling art infused with positive energy, or a video game that most likely nobody will ever play, you need to start, and you're being asked to fund the endeavor, well, you need to run for the hills. But in this case, people couldn't. Because this wasn't just the leader's dream, it was G's dream. The entity, the omniscient being of divine light who exists across dimensions and has lived for hundreds of years, has a dream. And the dream is a video game called Bannockey Town. Yeah, sounds legit. Now, Amber Yanes was a high school senior when her parents met Allerai at a health and wellness expo around 2008. She said her parents started driving 2.5 hours each way to attend these channeling sessions. Now, in her sworn affidavit, she says that her father's involvement led him to move his children from Iowa to the Minneapolis area in 2009, and then 9 years later, sell his stake in the family farm for almost $1.5 million. She alleges that he spent so much on Allerai's community that he used food banks to feed his children. And this is the line from her affidavit that I literally cannot forget. Quote, "The largest change in my family is that the journey comes first. So much so that my father has expressed to me that the journey is more important to him than his children." So remember how the leader of this cult was estranged from her husband and children? Seems to be a theme that runs throughout the cult. This ex-follower also writes that she's worried that her father can't afford to retire because of the financial implications of being in that group, and that he's worked hard his whole life and at his age deserves to slow down. That's a daughter in a court document doing her father's retirement math for him from outside the group that he chose over her. And so it begs the question, what happens when somebody starts to doubt the leader? Luminai's affidavit describes a practice that former members call a posse. And I've heard it be called pose too. It's POSSE. I have a dance background, so my brain immediately went to passe, so I'm going to call it that. Sorry if I'm wrong. Someone who expressed negative thoughts about the group would be sat down, and members would form a circle around them and throw questions at them for several hours until they gave in. And her description of why it worked is honestly kind of the single most useful thing that we can hear and help anyone try to understand high control groups. Quote, the path of least resistance was to agree with them so that you could go home, unquote. So it's not just brainwashing. It's not hypnosis. It's exhaustion. You agree because you just want to go eat dinner. You agree because it's 11 at night. And here's the thing. Once you have agreed out loud in front of 30 people, you have to live with having agreed. Tomorrow, you either admit you caved to make it stop, or you decide you meant it. So most people, most of the time, just decide that they meant it. And look, that is not human weakness. That is how humans work. And every single group uses this technique because they know that that is the natural human tendency. The isolation, according to these accounts, ran on a parallel track. Lumini alleges that Allerai encouraged members to distance themselves from their families because continued contact would jeopardize their spiritual journey. She alleges that Allerai began telling members that they were bad parents and warned their children to not listen to their own parents because it would mess them up. So the adults are getting told to pull away from their parents, and the kids are getting told, well, your parents are broken. So every single generational rope is basically cut from both ends at once. And then there's the allegation that made me literally feel nauseous. Lumini says that when she was diagnosed with cancer for a second time, Allerai advised her to not tell a soul because her relatives would hold fear, and then that fear would lead to her death. Cancer, her second diagnosis. And the guidance was to keep it from your family because their fear is the danger. They don't want you to hold on to your family. Go seek out your family in your final days, years, or months. And of course, Allerai denies all of these accounts, but essentially she told a woman that she needed to face cancer alone in order to be spiritually safe. That's cruel. It's disgusting. So what happens to the families on the outside who are desperate to be with their loved ones who are inside the group? Let's talk about another woman involved. Mary Ring joined in 2007, and according to her daughters, within a year of joining, she was divorcing her husband and leaving them behind. She stopped seeing her girlfriends, she stopped coming to birthdays and holidays, and if she did come home, she came with another member, somebody to keep tabs on her, a handler, essentially. She skipped her beloved cousin's funeral. She skipped her own daughter Kelly's wedding. In 2022, at 70 years old, she legally changed her name to Sienna LaJoy. Her daughter's affidavit also lays out the money. She alleges that her mother received roughly $90,000 in the divorce for her share of the property, plus roughly $90,000 in spousal maintenance over about 10 years. And she alleges that when her parents were back in court around 2018 or 19, her mother appeared without an attorney, representing herself, and stated that she was filing for bankruptcy. Now, we don't really know where all of that money went. Nobody has established that. But I could speculate that that woman went into this cult with a house settlement and a decade of support payments and lost it all while inside. I think that tells us enough. And now we're back to the woman I brought up at the very beginning of the episode, Kelly Abadi. Her own history has a record too. She says that she joined soon after getting out of rehab at 18, and that around that same time, her mother stopped attending Al-Anon meetings and would go to Allarai's circle instead. She alleges that Allerai advised her to not associate with a good friend she'd made in rehab and tried to talk her out of dating the man who would then become her husband. She alleges that when she got pregnant, she was warned to fear her partner because he was an immigrant from Iran and would take her child away. And she would be reminded of this very frequently. But then we also have John Gopal in Maryland, whose older sister moved to Minnesota and stopped talking to her family. He told the Daily Beast that she had a full-ride scholarship for a doctorate in art therapy about 10 years ago and walked away from it. She told him the reason why was that she was going to go after what she desired, and the school was not what she desired. His observation about that phrasing is the sharpest thing any family member has said in this whole case, in my opinion. Quote, "That word is hard for me now. It's really what she kept focusing on, was doing what she desires. It was a weird phrase that she kept repeating. It almost felt scripted," unquote. But that is the tell. When somebody you love starts using a vernacular or a phrase that isn't theirs, doesn't seem natural, starts using rhetoric you've never heard them ever say in a cadence that isn't even theirs, and it comes up every single time you talk, you're not hearing your friend, your loved one, your daughter, your mother, your father. You are hearing their curriculum. You're hearing their brainwashing. And notice how good the phrase is. Doing what I desire. Oh, that sounds like liberation. It sounds like therapy speak. It's completely unarguable. Because what, are you going to tell someone to not chase what they are saying they desire? It's language that shuts the conversation down while simultaneously sounding like empowerment. And it's one of the most reliable tactics, but also red flags out there. Gopal said that his sister once told him that during a channeling session, the leader became Jesus and talked to her about how Christianity had been misunderstood. He says his parents attended one workshop, found it interesting, but chose never to go back. He says his family told her, "We'll be here for you if you need us, and we'd love to see you at Christmas." But she never came home. When his sister met the leader, she was vulnerable, struggling with addiction, to the point that their parents had literally given her an ultimatum: rehab or we cut you off. But then she found this spiritual group and turned her life around. But that's the part that makes it so hard, is there's always someone vulnerable. It always looks like they're turning their life around at first. It worked for her initially. It genuinely did. And this is true of every group I cover. Because people aren't joining for the weird stuff. They joined because they were drowning and somebody threw them a life raft. And that raft, it's attached to this rope. But suddenly, the rope just gets cut while they're still desperately hanging on. But they can't let go of that raft because they think the raft is what saved them. Now, all of that exposition and context finally brings us to 2019, to a food truck called Bad Rooster launching, and it operated out of the parking lot of the Soulful Journey Wellness Center. It hit the road in March of 2020, but then it had to relaunch, obviously, about a month later after the first lockdown. Now, Soulaire Allerai is a co-owner, and her title, which she picked, is Chief Mother Clucker. And the thing is, this food truck, Bad Rooster, was genuinely beloved. It was award-winning. There would be long lines for it at breweries. It had 14 sauces. It had chicken from Minnesota farms, brioche from a Minneapolis baker. The nonprofit Living Earth ran food drives and sock drives and volunteered at Vikings games. So this is a food truck that's operating and conducted next to a nonprofit that she directs. It's a part of a spiritual property that she owns. So suddenly this woman is your teacher, your landlord, your business partner, your minister, your boss, and there's just no way that that can all be the same person. And what's crazy about all that is none of it's illegal. It's also one of the single biggest red flags in this entire story because it means that leaving the group is leaving your livelihood. It's all the same. The truck was also, by Allerai's own legal filing, making real money. A recent lawsuit claims that Bad Rooster brings in up to $9,000 a day. And its ownership tells you why some of the families of followers got loud. Bad Rooster's financial backer, per Allerai's own interview with a local publication, was a friend named Terry McCabe. This is the same father who moved his kids from Iowa, sold his stink in the family for nearly $1.5 million. And by 2022, he was a 1/3 owner of this food truck. So when followers start saying out loud that a food truck is financing this cult that took away their mother, they're not pulling that out of nowhere. They're looking at who owned it. Now, Allerai's position is that She's saying these accusations are patently false and designed to harm her and the business because of the success and goodwill they'd earned, and that her critics are trying to find a scapegoat for their own problems. Her spokeswoman said it plainly, quote, Soulaire Allerai is not a cult leader and she does not brainwash people. She teaches people to develop healthy relationships. The spokeswoman added that the people who take classes decide for themselves whether to talk to their families, and that those decisions have nothing to do with Soulaire or her services. Okay, so the mother who gets cancer for the second time and you told to not speak to her children who probably want to see their dying mother in her final days, that wasn't coercion? Was that what you're telling us, Allerai? Now, this is where a lot of the public manipulation and exploitation of feelings, in my opinion, starts to come into play. In a Facebook statement, Allerai wrote, "This country was founded on religious dissent, and simply because my beliefs are something other than the norm does not mean anybody has been mistreated." She added that many people are drawn to the work at Soulful Journey because they come from toxic families. There's also a video from July 2022 filmed in front of the truck, where she tries to look extremely human. She and the head chef stand there and defend themselves. She says the food truck has been nothing but an award-winning food truck. She says, "We serve the best chicken." And I guess I feel the state. She said she's tired of being attacked because she has purpose in life. And she says, I quote, "I sit and cry and don't understand why complete strangers jump on a bandwagon and you know nothing about what's being said." The chef then asked viewers for support, saying that they cannot survive this defamation without it. So obviously this is going to tug at the heartstrings of people who have no idea what's going on. They're going to watch these people and think, oh my God, why are people bullying women business owners? We should be propping them up, lifting them up. There is no acknowledgement that a dozen people's families are in genuine pain. Every response is about the truck. Now, in July of 2022, Kelly Abidi wrote her Facebook post. She said that Allerai's group functions like a cult, that Allerai charges her followers lots of money to speak to God, and that she has actively torn families apart. And the post went viral. Other people would leave reviews sharing those sentiments. In the post, she said that at least 4 other families had come forward with similar stories of manipulation and emotional, mental, and financial abuse. She also said the goal was to inform the public about the group behind the truck so people could make informed choices about where they spend her money. It's giving Yellow Deli of 12 tribes. I'm going to do an update video on this group, but I also have one here that I'll link. So after Fox 9's first story aired, Allerai posted a statement that didn't just deny the allegations, it warned against them. She wrote that each and every instance of defamation is being tracked and identified, and that these individuals will be held accountable for the reputational and financial damage they have caused. But there were no specifics on who she would be targeting. So to anyone who's still inside this community and you have doubts, or any ex-member is thinking about calling a reporter, that's intimidation. That's a tactic. I mean, 2 women who have spoken out have already been sued, and guess who sued them? Bad Rooster and Soulaire Allerai. The filing said that the women had begun a relentless online campaign to defame an award-winning local food truck, falsely claiming that it supported a cult, abused people, and destroyed families, and that 4 partners had already canceled events. So 2 private citizens were sued for over $200,000 over a Facebook post about their mother. When an organization with a wellness center, a nonprofit, a podcast with a large following, and a truck allegedly clearing $9,000 a day points its lawyers at 2 innocent women, the lawsuit is not really some search for the truth. It's intimidation. That's all it is. It tells everybody else watching exactly what speaking up will cost them. But luckily, here, it backfired spectacularly because the sisters' defense was the truth, and truth is an absolute defense to defamation. If a statement is true, it can't be defamatory. So their lawyers went and got proof, and in September of 2022, 7 other people, former members and estranged relatives of current members, filed sworn affidavits backing the sisters' description of the group. On July 20th, 2023, Judge Klein threw the entire lawsuit out. Now, he didn't rule that Soulful Journey is a cult. Because honestly, running a cult isn't illegal, unfortunately. The judge made no finding that the allegations were true. What he did rule is that not one court can decide whether a religious organization is a cult or not. He said that it's a matter of personal opinion, dependent upon values and beliefs, and it did fail to meet the legal standard for defamation. So in this case, it worked because the real victim got justice. On one hand, I appreciate the designation. But on the other hand, I'm like, oh, when we have such, blurred lines about a group as dangerous as a cult, it makes it a lot more difficult for the law to actually make running a cult illegal. So I don't love this determination, but I do love the outcome. Because Kelly Abidi won. The case against her for defamation was dismissed and she didn't have to pay. And she won because a judge said that calling something a cult is an opinion, and opinions are protected, and a courthouse can't determine whether or not something is a cult. But Allerai's side looked at this all as vindication. Her attorney basically said that the lawsuit revealed the truth and described all of Kelly's statements as emotional and hyperbolic. So it doesn't set the precedent that I would like to be seen in a court of law across the board. So that makes me a little bit disappointed in the overall outcome of this. But it also does set the precedent that someone like me online could call something a cult and not be sued for defamatory remarks, even if I can prove and believe that something is a cult. But again, if we don't have a true definition of what a cult is, and we don't make running a cult illegal and lying to people illegal, we have to constantly figure out how a cult is either defrauding the public or the government, or creating a sex cult, or abusing people, stealing their money, forced labor, all of the reasons that other cults have been brought down. It makes it so much more difficult later to take these groups down. So while I love that the survivor, that the victim who loved her family member and was just trying to help her and protect other people, got justice in this situation, I'm disappointed that a precedent wasn't set. So now what's going on? Well, as far as I can tell, the Soulful Journey is still running. The Wellness Center on Minnetonka Mills Road is still listed, and Living Faith is still there. Soulaire Allerai is still teaching, still podcasting, still selling the book, and as of filming this, is still denying everything. So all we can do is hope that people don't get sucked into this. All we can do is keep talking about it. That's why I'm excited that there are more documentaries that are discussing active cults, because hopefully it will continue to educate the masses. So I highly recommend you go watch that documentary. I think that Investigation Discovery and people are doing really great work right now, and I really appreciate them talking about these lesser known groups. So with all of that being said, everybody, please let me know what your thoughts are below. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye.